Just recently was the 35th anniversary of the Move bombing, a very horrendous action taken by the Philadelphia police who dropped a bomb from a helicopter under a black neighborhood, which resulted in 65 homes burnt and 11 people, including 5 children, dead. The target of the bombing was an Anarcho Primitivism organization named Move. Their Anarcho Primitivism, or ANPRAM for short, beliefs are fairly common in society. Many believe in it, and often, even though they do not know what it is, they share similar values or are at least sympathetic to their beliefs. In this video, we will dive into ANPRAM, what they believe, and why they believe it. It's worth noting that the ANPRAM movement itself is fairly diverse, and not all ANPRAMs agree with one another on everything. In this video, we will be generalizing things a lot about ANPRAMs. ANPRAMs are a form of anarchists who regard nature and the natural environment as paramount to a healthy state of the human race, physically and mentally. They see civilization to be in direct conflict with Earth's natural environment and advocate for a return to uncivilized way of life. They see nature as a fine balancing act, and when nature is well balanced, then all living things can live in a harmonious environment. In ANPRAM's eyes, this harmonious environment is a utopia, and one that can only be achieved by reversing all that civilization has done. An environment where there is no hierarchy power, no racial conflict, no sexism. Humans started out as hunter-gatherers. At some point we started domesticating plants and animals, which started throwing off the balance of nature. Instead of letting wild plants grow wild and wild animals run wild, where nature's laws was all that mattered, we started imposing our own will onto nature, choosing what plants are going to grow where and what animals will roam where. This taming of nature led to the birth of civilizations. Humans pursued these endeavors with the promise that life would become easier with these methods of cultivating nutrition. But ANPRAMs would argue life not only did not get easier, but actually became harder on humans. The common belief is that as agriculture became the norm and grew, it freed up labor in the community, allowing others to become more specialized in various fields outside farming, as there was no longer need for the entire population to dedicate their lives to cultivating nutrition. ANPRAMs would argue that the trade-off was not a good one. While farmers were imposing their will on nature, others began to impose their will on others, and society started moving away from a naturally balanced way of living towards an unnatural fake way of living. The new way of life started forming hierarchies within society. As people started to domesticate nature, the natural distribution of resources got destroyed and replaced with a totalitarian relationship. What was once everyone's to share now becomes owned and a commodity with value. This new relationship not only enslaved the animals and plants that were domesticated, but the humans who were doing the domestication as well, not only in a physical way but in a psychological way as well. Whereas before one did what one wanted, now their lives became more structured with obligation, resulting in pervasive ways in which we are domesticated, fractured, and dislocated from ourselves, each other, and the world, through thousands of years of alienating and mediation to allow us to live in unnatural communities which psychologically changed us. We are no longer experiencing direct connections with the nature around us and have become subservient to technology and the materials that surround us. By becoming a specialist, you become dependent on other specialists to survive, as your one skill may not be enough to survive alone, therefore enslaving everyone to each other and not to nature. ANPRAM is a rather appealing concept. After all, it feels like the need and pressures to conform to society are greater today than ever before, and with concrete jungles having become humans' habitat over natural jungles, you can't help but feel a disconnect between humans and nature. Also, archaeological evidence shows that uncivilized humans had healthier lives, with disease being less prominent. However, let's explore what some misconceptions ANPRAMs have and some flaws they may be victim to. For many, the trade-offs of modernization well justify leaving our hunter-gatherers' roots behind. For me, I am an aviator. I love to fly. I will gladly trade building a fire and hunting so that I can go jump into a small plane and fly like a bird around the sky. I know many others who share my feelings. Child mortality rates were also very high once. Any mother who had a C-section may not have enjoyed living in an ANPRAM's ideological world. ANPRAMs like to claim that leisure time was more plentiful 10,000 years ago, but this is very speculative and highly depends on what you consider leisure. Also, prehistory humans lived in a very feast or famine type of life. I am sure if you were lucky and lived in a resource-rich area and time, then life was not that bad. But if you found yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, starvation was a real possibility. All things considered, I think Ambrim's resentment is well-founded, but not worth giving up everything we have achieved. It would be best to acknowledge these shortcomings of modern society and find ways to balance our current way of living with nature and find ways to be more connected with nature around us.